got time to call the public hearing to order. This public hearing is to do with the, if you're killed in the line of duty, to exempt you from paying on your real estate for the house and 1 acre of land. Correct?
That is correct. And what this ordinance is, it directly follows what Virginia code allows. Back in 2016, there was a referendum that was put on for vote about amending the Virginia Constitution to allow for this exemption. For this exemption to take place, the local governing body actually has to pass the ordinance for it to be effective.
Okay. And we'll vote on it. It's number 9 on the agenda. I can read it into record when we vote on it.
You can, absolutely.
Anyone got any public comments on that? In the line of duty? If anyone's listening and wants to comment, the phone number is 276-337-333-0357. Used all my kids having 337. Any of the board members want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to say I think it'd be a great thing for the board to do. Someone gives their life protecting us in either firefighting, rescue, or law enforcement. I think it's a good thing to do for the family. They have enough struggles after that, dealing with the death of a loved one. If we can help them out just that little bit, I think it's absolutely wonderful.
I do too. I think it's...
Define line of duty. Who does that include?
It's in the code. It's number 9 on the agenda.
And what it technically is, it's covered person means any person that's set forth as deceased person, and then it's got the code section that is entitled to receive benefits under Virginia Code 9.1402. And 9.1402 specifically defines when somebody who's been killed in the line of duty is entitled to benefits based on the spouse, dying in the line of duty. I don't have the definition pulled up here, but I can.
I, like Richard, think it's a very wonderful thing. But does that include, what does that include, line of duty, you know? I know that firefighters, all first responders and sheriff deputies,
Yeah, they would fall under it.
It's very specific. It says payments to beneficiaries of certain deceased law enforcement officers, firefighters, and retirees, and they have to qualify for the benefit as far as that, and it's got to be within the line of duty as far as that. I don't see a direct definition for what's classified as in the line of duty, but it says as the direct or proximate result of the performance of his duty. So if he's in the line of duty as far as protecting others, and the death results from the proximate or direct result then of performance of his duties, then at that point they would be entitled to the exemption.
mentions firefighters, is that what?
It does.
I think it should also include the,
There's a long list as far as who it
It
involves.
is, yeah.
But it doesn't involve
pulled it out and looked
firefighters.
at it.
It involves police officers. It involves, what else? Jail officers, correction officers, regional jail employees. There's a long list.
First responders, basically.
well, you could say, if a teacher got killed out of duty, they deserve the same
Teachers are not on
consideration
there,
for my
right?
way of looking at it.
No, they're not on there.
Well, they should be on it.
This is the Code of Virginia.
That's spelled out in the Code of Virginia.
It's spelled out in the Code of Virginia. Okay, if there's no more comments, I need a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Anyone second it?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing. All in favor, vote the usual way of voting.
Aye.
Any nays? I vote aye also. Now it's time to start our regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. I think I'm 6:01. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll ask for prayer. Larry, do you feel like prayer? Okay.
Let's pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you tonight, Lord, just asking you to provide a special blessing over our county, Lord, all those that are sick, those that are hurting, those that have lost loved ones, Lord, and Lord, we just ask that you watch over our meeting, Lord, that you give guidance to our leaders as they make decisions that affect our county, Lord. So all these things we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Mr. Thacker, will you start the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And the next thing on the agenda is the approval of our minutes. And Mr. Barton sent us the corrections that was on for this afternoon, so is it the pleasure of the board to, the special call meeting for May the 31st of 24, public hearing June the 25th of 24, and our regular meeting June the 25th of 24. Do you want to approve all of them at the same time?
Yes.
We have a motion to
Motion that we approve all of the
minutes.
minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or any corrections or anything else on the, anybody got a comment or anything? If not, how do you vote, Ms. Sluss?
Yeah,
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Pitts?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall? And I also. And the next thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
We have one, okay, you got the sheriff on there, yes, okay. I saw it laying here. Okay. Anyone else got anything to add to the agenda? If not, we need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agendas.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. How do you vote, Ms.
aye.
Celeste, Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Hall? Ms. Kaiser and Mr. Hall? Aye. Mr. Hall, okay. And the next thing on there is to approve the expenditures and the reports. No,
Madam-
this,
Madam Chair,
consent agenda, okay.
On our consent agenda, we do have a new report this month, the Sheriff's Office report. A copy has been provided by the sheriff. It's left on your
Yeah,
desk. I think the sheriff wanted to share some information.
I was gonna ask him if he wanted to come forward. You wanna come to the podium and do it, Mr. Sheriff Flemings?
Yes.
And then we'll approve all of them at the same time.
appreciate you guys giving me time to do this tonight, and I'm hoping that this is something that I can do monthly with the board's approval. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm hoping we can go over this together. I think you guys
I'm
have a
glad you
copy
brought the
of it.
report,
Yeah,
though.
and like I said, I'd like to do it monthly. Again, we'll see how much time it takes up, but I'm hoping we can do it in 10 to 15 minutes, if that's okay.
That's fine.
And we'll just hit some of the larger numbers, and if you guys have any other questions about any of these calls entered into our reporting system, you can stop me or just let me know at any time. But if you look, this year is going to be from June 1st to June 30th. So it's going to be a 30-day period. In our SOMA reporting system, we logged 2,189 calls in those 30 days. It came through our dispatch office. So some of the bigger numbers, if you look at that first number, you got 41. That's going to be 41 911 hang-up calls that we responded to. Assist motorists with keys, it'll be 35 of those for the month. If you come down to the BOLO, it's be on the lookout for a specific vehicle. We have 25 of those for the month. Come down to the church check. We checked 514 churches in 30 days. Civil process, we served 454 civil papers in that 30-day period. A couple numbers, low numbers you might be interested in. The DOAs, we had 3 for the month of June. We had 16 domestic violence calls that we responded to. 8 emergency custody orders. If you flip over to the next page, had 19 escorts. That would be most of them funeral escorts, or an escort from another county coming into our county. Had 134 government patrols. Of course, that's with our core contract we have with the government. We patrol all the campgrounds in the county. Information calls, got 48 of those. Looks like we had a total of 25 motor vehicle accidents in the month of June. Most of them property damage, 19 property damage. 6 of those were reported injuries. Had 2 missing children, which we found both of those very quickly, within 10 minutes of the call coming out. One was actually located, it was a 3-year-old that was located prior to our arrival. And then one was a 10-year-old that we actually arrived on scene and found in a closet playing hide and go seek.
Oh, gosh. I've dealt with that, too.
Yeah. So patrolling checks, we done 512 patrolling checks for the month of June. Most of what those are people that are on vacation, people that are out of town. They will call us and we'll put them on our board. We'll make a note in our system to do an extra patrol of their specific road address or their house. A lot of those 512 consist of getting out of the car and checking all the doors, windows, and so on of the houses, make sure everything's okay. 2 pursuits, that's a number that I'd like to be 0, but unfortunately it's happening more often, even here, surrounding counties. It just seems like that number's been up for the last couple of years for some reason, but request officer by phone or in person, we had 138 of those. Going to flip over to the next page. 23 roadway hazards. And again, there's a lot I'm skipping, so if you have any questions about them, just let me know. 12 security alarms. Suspicious person, vehicle, or activity, got 30 of those. Our deputies conducted 56 traffic stops for the month of June. 12 trespassing calls. And it looks like we made 130 total arrests for the month of June. We received a total of 221 warrants, and that could be from other counties, other states, wanting us to try to locate an individual that may be wanted from their jurisdiction. If you flip over to the ECO TDO page, it looks like we had 13 of those for the month. If you look, you'll see one here in Clintwood, and then we took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, took 6 to Bristol, took 4 to Marion, and 3 to Lebanon. If you flip it over on the next page, we had 2 criminal transports, which would be an extradition. Another locality arrested someone that was wanted from Dickinson County. It looks like we went to Henry County, picked up 1, and Shenandoah County and picked up 1. I think that's a total of 16 transports in that 30-day period. And if you look out from the transports, you can see the dates, and you can also see the hours that were worked. A total of 80 hours on transports for the month. Looks like we served 41 protective orders for the month. We logged 28,723 miles in 30 days. So almost 1,000 miles a day is what we logged on our vehicles. Auxiliary hours worked, 126. So I think that number is huge because it shows that they're coming out, they're helping us with events. I think we had 6 special events. So they're coming out, they're helping with parades, they're helping with traffic control, they're helping with whatever we need them, transports. That way we don't have to send 2 certified officers as opposed to just 1. But that's a big help. Investigations. You guys don't have this because I got this late. For the month of June, we opened 11 new child abuse neglect cases. This is our investigators. We opened 12 new fraud cases, 1 assault case, 1 larceny case, done 6 follow-ups. Looks like we got 6 ICAC reports, international crimes against children. Assisted outside agency. I think that was Wise County had a shooting. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. It happened last
St.
week.
Paul, wasn't it?
We actually responded to that. They asked for assistance. It was in the Sandy Ridge area, and our investigators got there and helped tremendously with that. I got a call from Sheriff Kilgore. He thanked us and thanked their department for coming over and helping. So we was able to help them with that. Phones that were processed. They processed 7 phones in those 30 days. And when I say process 7 phones, that means we either done search warrants on those phones, we locked down Facebook, some type of social media on that device. And this is where the work starts. When you download a phone and you start getting the information back, I'm aware that one of those phones, just one of those phones, had over 60,000 images. So when we got to sit down and look through 60,000 images on one phone, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of help. So we do everything we can do. Investigators, they'll send images to the courtroom guys when they have downtime, and we'll all be going through images to see what we can see. But one phone, over 60,000 images. Opened 3 new sex crimes done 3 forensic interviews, done 5 search warrants, 1 arson investigation. And another number I think is very important. Last year, this is 2023, we called state police on 554 cases. 554 calls is what we gave to state police because we were either tied up, we were busy on other calls. Now that's for the year, for 2023, but we gave state police 554 calls. And that's all I've got for the report for June. If any of you guys have any questions on any of those, I'd be happy to answer. But I'd love to be able to give a report, a monthly report. Like I said, it shouldn't take no more than 10 minutes or so. And that way keep the public notified and keep you guys notified on what we're doing, how many calls we're taking, and so on.
Jeremy, those hang-up calls, are they a lot of watches?
Well, and that's a good question.
Because I have mine and it'll go off and
Yeah.
I have to,
A lot of the 911 hang-up calls we get are weather-related.
oh, okay.
Sometimes you'll get a thunderstorm, and I don't know why. I can't explain it. Have to talk to somebody with Verizon. We've attempted, but we get a lot of 911 hang-up calls during bad weather. And we get a lot of domestic-related calls with 911 hang-ups. 911 hang-up call, Richie can probably tell you, is one of the most dangerous calls you ever go on. So what we do, if we receive a 911 hang-up call, we will immediately ask dispatch, search the system. How many calls have we had at that residence? Was it domestic related? Was it a civil disturbance? What was it? We want to know who's there, what the call was, before we go. But those are some of the most dangerous calls you can go
Yes.
on, 911 hang-up call. Because usually you got somebody trying to call 911, somebody grabbing the phone, somebody, hiding the phone, because it's a serious situation. But we make several arrests off the 911 hang-up calls.
I just wondered if it was watches, because I'll hit mine accidentally and it'll go off. But I try to exit out real fast.
Yeah. Any of these numbers you guys have any questions about, just like that, I'd be happy to try to
But
answer
you've
for
been
you.
very busy.
And it ain't just doing the patrols and not answering all these calls, you gotta do the paperwork too, right? When you get back, you gotta file reports and
Yes.
type a lot of time with.
That's a problem you have when you get these kind of numbers, when you get 2,100 calls a month. Of course, we don't respond to all of those, but a large majority of them we do. And, Richie can tell you again, when you're doing a report in our SOMA reporting system, I mean, if you're really good at doing reports, you could knock one out in 45 minutes. But when you're doing 4 or 5 of those a day, or you're answering calls until the end of the shift, then you got to do 8 or 10 the next day, it makes it really tough. It does. And so a lot of them will do them on the computers in the cars, just downtime. But it's very time consuming. But again, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you very
Good
much.
report.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, now, we're at the consent agenda. Do you want to approve all of them at one time? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H?
Can I make a comment or ask a question?
Yes. please.
I guess y'all have noticed or remember in the last 2 or 3 months that I've tried to make notation and speak out on either the overdoses and stuff that these rescue squads are answering to each month. And I noticed Hayside had 2 on there for this month. But what also, and you may not even can answer, are any of these underage? Are these overdose calls adults or underage kids, or can't specify?
Occasionally, we will get one. Unfortunately, I don't know how to say this nicely, but legislation is making it very, for us to do this July, legislation passed where we can no longer charge a juvenile for vaping. So this is a big problem at schools, and now, I mean, you walk through Clintwood, Food City, Courthouse, and they could be a 12-year-old vaping, and there's absolutely nothing we can do. Taking so much away from us. How that happened, I don't know, but it got through and it passed, but, so that's not helping anything when it comes to juveniles who are overdosing. But yes, occasionally we will get a juvenile who is overdosing. But now there's no consequences for using vapes which contain THC or other harmful drugs that you put in your body. Will might be more familiar with that code section than I am. Like I said, how it happened, it's one of the things that I scratched my head on.
And I agree. I know the court system was talking about it last week, where it just went into effect, you know, a few weeks ago, and it's incomprehensible. I mean,
It is, it's just unthinkable, you know, so now they can vape anywhere they want in schools, there's nothing teachers can do, there's nothing law enforcement
My
can do.
goodness.
I don't know.
When you mean vape, you mean they can have marijuana in there, do you?
Well, some of them's got it.
Be smoking it there?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is you never know what you're vaping, especially when you get, you know, you vape from a friend or somebody buys you a vape, you never really know what's in that vape. But it can't be good for your health, whatever's in it. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm just ignorant when it comes to vaping, but they can vape marijuana? And that's legal?
Yeah, so stores cannot sell it to juveniles. Nobody can sell it to a juvenile. But there's no consequences for the juvenile for possessing it.
I didn't know that.
So whether it's a parent or a friend or
Parent, friend.
somebody.
What do you mean vape at school? They can
Well,
go,
And obviously, the school can take disciplinary action from that. So it's not that a kid can just start vaping at school and there's nothing that can be done. However, usually in the past when that's happened, the sheriff's office or school resource officers would also bring charges in order to be able to ultimately help that juvenile be able to get help, get services through the court system, and to get that charge hopefully dismissed if they complied with what they were doing. And now, as of July 1, that power has been taken away.
Yes, and like Will said, and I apologize, I should have said that up front, but the school policy can,
Override it.
yes, but as far as you know, a teacher telling a school resource officer it does no good, criminally, there's nothing that can be done.
Well-
There could be disciplinary action taken through the school system, but criminally, there's nothing. And used to, it was usually diversion time.
Correct.
Juvenile intake.
I was just concerned if any of these overdoses and stuff that these rescue squads are being called on, if it's being relayed back to the school to where they can offer some issues, some help, you know, because I think they have people up there to work with kids on, for counseling and that if that gets back to the school, so the school can try to help these kids in school with some counseling and that.
Anytime we answer a call, if it's domestic related, overdose type call, we always notify the school system.
Okay.
Just in case that child's not in school tomorrow.
Right.
They-
Well, that's
you know,
good.
They know what's going on. But we do, yes. Sheriff's office, we always notify the school of any issues. That
Okay.
the child may have traumatic situation, they may have been involved in the evening or the day before.
And kids bring that to school. Because one year I decided, well, I think I might do some substituting and get into school and see. And the school that I was at, this aide had kept this child back from recess to try to help this child with some additional homework. And they just sat there like this, I wonder what my mom's doing. they do a little bit of work, and then they twist their hair. I wonder how my mom is. And that's sad. That's sad. And I seen that. I'm not going by somebody telling me that. I seen that, you know. There.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Okay, now we're down to the consent agenda. Did anybody make a motion on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This will include Mr. Sturgill's invoices as
And
well.
yes, and also, this will include the Mr. Sturgill's, bill also that we received.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve item A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H of the consent agenda, one of those being the expenditures, which will include the attorney's invoice that he has presented us, which is for 3 months. April, May, and June.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agendas. Is there any questions or any concerns? If not, how do you vote, Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Sless? And I also. Okay, now we're down to public comment. And I'll ask Mr. Sturgill to give the rules for public comment, and we will go from there.
Okay. Upon recognition by the chairman, the speaker shall address himself to the chairman, and if at the conclusion of his remarks, any member of the Board of Supervisors desires further information, the member will address the speaker with permission of the chairman. There shall be a time limit for each individual speaker of 3 minutes. A representative of a group may have up to 5 minutes to make a presentation. Speakers are not permitted to donate time to other speakers. No speaker's time shall be extended except by unanimous consent or 2/3 vote of the board members present. Prohibited conduct. Persons appearing before the board will not be allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use profanity, use language which insults any person when directed at a public official or employee when not related to his or her official duties. However, citizens have the right to comment on the performance, conduct, and qualifications of public figures, make frivolous statements, interrupt other speakers, or engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting, engage in behavior that intimidates others, address the board on issues that do not concern the services, policies, or affairs of the county.
Anyone wishing to make a public comment? And also, you can make a public comment by phone at 276-333-0357. I think it's scrolling on the screen also.
As everyone knows me, I'm Dale Mullins. I'm Chief of Sandy Ridge Fire Department. I would just like to thank each and every one of you guys for approving the budget to help us on our repairs of our trucks for all the fire departments and rescues in the county. I thank y'all for that. I would also like to take this time to invite y'all. We always, every year, we have a cookout for our members. And we would like to invite every one of y'all to our cookout. It'll be the 17th of August. It'll be on a Saturday at the McClure Park. Last year, Miss Peggy Kaiser brought us a delicious apple pie. We wouldn't mind having another one. But I would like to invite y'all down to eat with us, or just come down and talk with us and stuff. We're gonna have our trucks down there, so that people can look at them and stuff.
What
I
time?
thank y'all so much
What-
for,
What time was it,
it'll
Dale?
be at 12 o'clock.
I probably can't attend. I have been contacted to cater a 50th wedding anniversary on that day.
What?
But I'll try to find time somewhere in there to fix you something.
You don't have to.
No, I
I'm
will.
just joking.
I mean, you're just across the road from
Yeah.
me, so
That's true.
I'll fix you something.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to make a comment? I assume no phone calls?
No, ma'am.
Okay. if no one else wishes to make a comment, we will close public comment and go on to Mr. James King from Brakes Airport Commission.
Hello,
Hello?
everyone, and thanks for this opportunity to come and give you a report and update on what's happening with the Brakes Regional Airport Authority. It's, really, let me start with this picture, then you can see what I'm talking about. This was prior, this is 2005, I think 2009, it's 2,200-foot runway airport, Grundy. Now, Grundy Municipal Airport, where we're working now, is probably a mile, maybe a mile and a half by air to the Dickinson County line. But by car, from that gap area, probably 3 or 4 miles. So it is really a regional concept, regional approach. Now, this is where we are now as of March this year. And what that means is that if you were on Route 460 just below Food City, and you looked up to your left if you're going down 460, this is what you can see. There's been 30 million yards of material moved. And you had to buy additional land, another 220 or 40 acres, so that the footprint is 320 acres on this site. So this is the progress that we've made, and I'll get into explain it with a short report to you, and then you can have ask me any questions that would be of interest. And of course, as a member or a participating municipality, Dickinson County has a member on our board appointed by you. And back in the first board member that we had was Mr. Rife. And then Ron Peters has been serving since Mr. Rife, and I have to give him credit. He's done a great job for the authority and his input and his interest. Now, I'll give you a little bit of history for this. In 2005, with the $150,000 grant awarded to the town of Grundy, it was the efforts of Congressman Boucher at that time to secure funding, do research on the location and finding a site for a regional airport. And so the town, who had done business with Talbot and Bright Engineers in Richmond since the airport was laid out by them, hired them and other local engineers as well, to do the search. And so the search ensued, obviously, doing the best they could to find a piece of property where you could put an airport. And it became obvious very quickly that the only financially feasible location that existed was the existing municipal airport and its surrounding property and how it was located. And one of the factors in that, of course, they went ahead and converted the grant to locate an airport to an airport layout plan at that time. And so one of the factors that helped them decide that is knowing that the town of Grundy owned those 80 acres and 80 acres of coal under it. So we have, at that point, had experience knowing that the way you build infrastructure is if you can mine it first, you can get a lot of the work paid for that way. And so the local engineering firm of TerraTech did an analysis of the coal that was available and recommended to the town that, yes, take this site and actually do mining on it and leave post-mining land use land for the building of an airport. And we did an advertisement, the town, and I was with the town more directly. I worked 3 times as town manager as they needed. I did work in the coal industry. I tried to retire, and I failed retirement. And they hired me as town manager, and then I did that 3 times. But I was there at that time. And we had a couple of responses. We had the Wilmore Coal Company and Paramount Coal Company to respond at that time, thinking that they could do a mining permit. And it became very obvious pretty quickly that they couldn't get a mining permit because of all of the opposition, particularly at that time, pertaining to mountaintop removal. So this had to be a mountaintop removal project. And so we came to an agreement pretty quick with Paramount, but they pursued that and just ran into dead end on trying to get any effort going where they could do either construction work, but they were more interested in there were mining companies doing mining. So at that point, in discussing, obviously it went on the shelf. The project was just, everybody said, well, that's dead, like people will do sometimes. But in discussions with state officials that I had, particularly the Department of Aviation, and having some insight going to Richmond every month with the Commonwealth Transportation Board for 10 years, I've built some friends and all that happened with that. And so they recommend, well, what we need to do now is to get a regional approach. You need to back off, and what that will do, if you go back and do a regional approach, it will enhance your ability to have a project that will catch the eye of the FAA and Virginia Department of Aviation. So officials from the town of Grundy and Buchanan County and Dickinson County established an effort of creating a regional airport authority. And the town of Grundy agreed to deed that 80 acres in the mineral to the Breaks Regional Airport Authority. That's what we were calling it. That's what we wanted to call it. And Buchanan County agreed to up to a $2 million enhancement and support, financial support for the project, and then agreed to give the coal severance tax from coal sold on that property to the authority. At that time, I worked with Senator Puckett, and we came up, he drafted the bill, and on March the 20th, 2009, our Breaks Regional Airport Authority was created, and there is a charter. You guys have got a copy of the charter, and it lays out our duties and the responsibilities and so forth. Then we, at that point, with that process, we did advertise it as a construction project. We got 5 responses from construction companies saying, yeah, we can come in and actually construct the airport. In the back of their mind, they knew they were going to try to sell the coal and get enough to cover the expenses for rough grade. And they did all of the calculations and submitted their proposals, and they just couldn't find that there's going to get enough revenue out of the coal to actually do the rough grade. They were wanting something like $20 million stipend difference out of the coal revenue, beyond the coal revenue. So it went back on the shelf, needless to say. And then things get more serious in 2018 when Wilmore Coal approached the Breaks Regional Airport Authority. We went dormant there for a while. We didn't have a lot of meetings or anything because it was discouraging. And Wilmore gave us an unsolicited proposal to actually establish a mountaintop removal surface mine and mine the coal. Our first response is, let's not go any further unless you determine that you can get a mining permit, because we've been through this. And so they convinced us that they could get a mining permit. So we actually signed that agreement to lease the coal off of the property we owned, and then, of course, they went ahead and bought an additional 230 or 40 acres, I'm not exactly sure, probably about around 240 acres, and as a result of that, they were able to get a mountaintop removal surface mine permit, and you can see the results here, to actually mine the coal. And so before we would actually get into that, we had them in the contractual agreement that they would agree that we would get a minimum of $3 million above the cost of actually doing the rough grade runway. So that was very encouraging to us, and that's the reason we pursued it pretty vigorously. And so, as a result, they've moved 30 million yards of material, and that will leave 5,700 feet for a runway. We expect the runway to be 5,100 feet and 300 feet on each end of the safety zone. Now, that was started in 2019, but during that time, while this mining has been ongoing, the Breaks Regional Airport Authority, we had to take our airport out of the federal funding system. It's called the NIPIAS. And so we still had the great support from the state. And of course, the aviation department was a part of the Virginia Department of Transportation that I was a member of at that time. So I had a lot of friends that we had that support, and we still have strong support from Virginia Department of Aviation. And so as a result, we had to get a justification analysis done, and state helps us fund that, to get our airport back into the federal funding. We were able to accomplish that. They approved, it was a preliminary report on what it was going to cost to build this airport. That preliminary number that came out of the justification analysis was that it would cost in excess of $22 million. And we were looking for the bulk of that to be a federal funded project, part of it. And so they approved our justification analysis and put the Breaks Regional Airport back into the funding. And as a result of that, we are able to move forward. So the next step is we have to develop a master plan for the airport. Now the state we're partnering with the state on funding this. The justification analysis was about, it was pretty thick. It was a survey of everything that would go on there. Then we had to do a scope of work required by the FAA on what would be included in a master plan. The scope of work, we spent $50,000 on that, and it's probably over an inch thick. But it was detailing what the master plan would do. Just 2 months ago, the state approved a $400,000 expenditure to develop the master plan. It is ongoing, and we expect the master plan to be finished this time next year. And coinciding with the mining company getting their bond released on the property and getting the mining permit released and all of that, so they be turned over and we can move forward in what would be the airport construction. So the master plan, Talbot and Bright Engineers in Richmond is the firm that's conducting that, and it just drills down and details everything that you can imagine about the construction of the airport. The real fear that I have is this cost is going to go up when we get the details of all that goes. For example, the runway. This area on the right side, if you look up from the city, this area right here is going to be a runway. Now we're leaving a trench that's at least 8 or 10 feet down, a trough, if you will. And the master plan has to detail exactly the size of the gravel, all of the overlay and material that goes in there, and you know the fencing, the terminals, the lighting, all of that will be more detailed in the master plan that's developed. And so what it amounts to is once we get the master plan completed and get of course, you have to go back and get the FAA to approve it. And looking at those numbers, then we can be more serious about, the process of building the airport. Now, I tell you all of that to emphasize something that's very important to you and to us and our region. And that is this part of the airport will be from the runway over here is going to be terminal airport connected properties. Over here on the other side of the runway is 80 acres. 80 acres of commercial property that we are actually taking the water in. We'll start construction this year. We'll have fiber. and we'll have three-phase power, all of that for commercial property. Now, that type of property has a niche in its marketability. The reason it has a niche is that you can't find an airport anywhere. It's got as much as 10 acres close to the airport for commercial development. And in this case, we're going to have 80 acres adjoining the airport. And so what the airport authority is considering now is actually taking this property and developing it as far as we can, and then turn it into the IDA's project for development. And from that perspective, we know that we're going to need aggressive approach of going out and developing this, getting it certified with the state as business ready, trying to get it certified with the process of aerial ready, all of that in order to develop a marketing plan and actually a recruiting plan. Go on out and find those people that you've identified that have the potential of being there so we can create some jobs. Now, one of the areas that you can identify with is this area right here. There'll be a 4-lane highway from 460 that crosses just below here, but there'll be a 4-lane highway to within a couple of miles of this airport and that commercial area. So it's going to be an effort. It's going to be important that we jointly look at recruiting and finding something that I know that will can employ people. It's a golden opportunity, and we're pleased to death with it because you just don't find this type of a property with this much potential anywhere, and particularly in our region, our area. And the hope is that we're going to be able to locate something that can employ a lot of people. So, and it is very encouraging when you look at it from that perspective. I just get anxious in a sense that it just takes too long to do stuff. And I've watched that with VDOT through the years, and you probably know what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to promote the concept and idea of simultaneous. Use that word. Let's chew gum and walk. Let's do some of these projects getting things ready and not wait till we get into the nippiest and all of that. Let's try to start a few things and get them going so that we can speed up the success of the project. So I could go on and on and on, and I know I've been in your meetings and in meetings like this. I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I do want you to feel comfortable to call upon us, ask us questions, and then let me answer any questions you've got tonight pertaining to the authority and/or the project.
Mr. Hall, do you have any questions?
I do. It was very interesting though how you couldn't get a mountaintop removal permit and then you ended up getting one later because as time goes on, it's harder to get those.
Yeah.
So
That was a battle. One of the things we got into with DEQ, the other was the active environmental group in our region at that particular time was objecting to everything. And at a point, one of the break points was, and this happens to be a project that Mark Warner kind of started back when he was governor and that type of thing. He was real interested in it. So as a senator, he asked one day, what's the progress? He said, well, we can't get any permits. So he called a meeting with the FAA, with DEQ, and with all the agencies in his office in Washington, and jerked a few blisters, and it seemed that they wanted to talk about it a little more after that. And then after a period of time, this died down. And so Wellmore surprised me. I worked 40 years for Jewel Resources Corporation and knew the problems that you go through with that. But, and J.P. Richardson, he's the president, and he come to me and said I could trust J.P. because he worked at Jewel. He said, we're going to do this. And they were successful. So getting the permit.
That was interesting to me, how that got done. So the relationships with, I guess, legislators and stuff if they get behind the project like that.
That's-
That makes a big difference.
That's
So
the
that's
key.
why we need to maintain those relationships.
You're right,
and-
you 100%, and that's the good thing we have with the Department of Aviation. I've been there for a while, and looking at that, and moving forward, we're developing a little bit of familiarity with some of the federal people, and when we send these pictures up there, they can't believe it. Now, when we first met and proposed this in Washington with the FAA office, we didn't have a picture like this, but we had them showing what material was going to be moved, we had engineering analysis and all of that. And so one of the engineers back in a corner of the room, something like this, he said, I just don't think you can do that. He said, our calculations, or my calculations right here, are just done it. In order to move that type of material, it will take $120 million. So we already had the commitment from Wellmore, so we knew where we were sitting. We said, well, can we count that as their local share? So it's fun stuff to work with too sometimes.
Now, the 80 acres that you can develop off to the side of the airport with this commission, we're a part of the commission. So if any business goes into this 80 acres, do we get share of that revenue? That would just be Buchanan County or Grundy?
There is no part of the charter that requires any revenue sharing. I think their benefit is going to be, and the airport authority is not going to even we're going to give the land to the county. We're not going to be able to share any of the revenue from that operation as well. And Buchanan County is probably going to be on the hook of trying to develop it because they're making a commitment to do it in terms of the resources. So, future revenues, there's no formula for that. I think our joint benefit is going to be employment. And, we need every one of your workers now to come over there and help and fill some of the jobs that's open there because in some areas, there is going to be a coal mine opening in Buchanan County that'll employ up to about 200 to 250 people in a site near where VP4 was. And they're working on that now. So we're not dead as far as mining is concerned, totally. It's got its heartaches, but it's going to be sustaining for a while.
I've got one more question.
Okay.
The size of the airport compared to like Lonesome Pine and Wise, Abingdon, I think there's one in Richlands maybe?
This
There's
one's
one in
being,
Tazewell. There's the one at Claypool Hill, right?
Yeah.
There's an airport
this would
there.
probably be second to Tri-Cities in terms of runway length.
Okay.
But I can see the great benefit it's doing for Buchanan County. And like you said, the only thing that would probably benefit with the airport being there, but they have a big airport at Claypool Hill, just off 460.
Yeah.
Because I've been up there and I had meetings up there and so forth. You see very little airplane traffic.
Well, I would encourage the two IDAs to get in together and talking about what type of sharing could take place if we can have some joint development ongoing. Because it should be an open, and it's.
How do you get up there to that?
Ms. Slash, wait just a second, I'm asking each one of them individually to speak.
It's 83 when you get to when you cross the Buchanan line, you're only about 4 miles. You turn and go to what's called Southern Gap.
Yeah.
And that's the region that's being developed right now. There'll be a new high school. They're breaking ground next week or so on a new high school up there, consolidated school. And Paul's Fans is located there. He employs about 100 people. So it's an area that has a lot of potential. Some housing ongoing. So, other questions?
Are you finished, Mr. Roger? Ms. Kaiser?
I don't think I have any.
Mr.
I don't have anything.
Ms. Slush?
The only thing, so you get, I know when you look across at Grundy from the Food City, you're talking across from Food City up on top of that mountain there?
If you're just going down 460,
Yeah.
past Food City, there's this office building. I said, if you look up, you will actually be
Oh, it's
hearing-
not actually across from Food City?
No, this up is the top of the mountain.
So it's more nearer to Southern Gap than it is to,
It is in Southern Gap.
it is in Southern Gap.
So you would
okay.
actually go up Van Sand up to the top of the mountain to make that coming toward Mason.
Gotcha. I mean, so they will be able to land planes similar to the Bristol?
Well, yeah, some of them that land in.
Or
Bristol
Blytheville,
is
where
gonna be,
Blyth-
based on demand, and of course, I don't see passenger service like you would have out of Bristol, but because there's not a demand for it, but I think there potentially could be developed, with short runs. Connector routes, and so forth.
Good for you.
Good for us, not me.
Well, I don't know that, the area of county I represent, the Clintwood area, you have the Wise, the Lonesome Pine Airport. And of course, if you want to take a trip, you gotta go out to Bluntville to get on Tri-Cities, the big airplane. But I say good for you, good for Buchanan County. And I hope we helped us some.
Well, I would think so.
Thank you, Mr. King, for coming and presenting that very informative report on the airport.
Yes. Call me if you need me.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're down to new business, and the first thing on the new business is the Dickinson County Public School carryover balance agreement. I think we told her she could carry over what she had left with her budget, and we just need to approve the agreement to carry it over.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is something that we've always done in the past. It's a formality that we have to give them permission to do, but always, the schools are being good stewards of their funds by trying to save some money and carrying it forward to the next budget cycle. And of course, this time last year, they had a balance of $1,470,291 that they carried forward. This year, they've got a little more, and of course, it's broken down by the different categories that they have, but it's $2,947,705.81. And, I agree with Ms. Willis. I think,
Most of it's
Educated
grants and
it is.
different
There's a lot of
things.
specific- There's some construction funding in
Right.
here, security grant funding, things like that.
It's
And,
not that they get to keep that from us. Their carryover budget is like
Right, our
$594,000.
operational budget
Right.
carryover, yes, ma'am.
To have a motion that we approve the agreement to carry the carryover balance. It's a yearly thing that we have to do.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, have a motion, do I have a second?
I second it.
A motion and a second, is there any discussion? If not, how do you vote? Ms. Sluss?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. The next thing is the Atlantic Service Agreement that we have with the, I guess the Registrar's Office has this agreement to take care of our voting machines, and this is a yearly thing, and they didn't raise any rates,
They did
correct?
not, we were anticipating an increase during budget season, but thankfully, when they actually got their proposed contract from Atlantic Elections, it was the same as we're currently in this current year. And of course, these are services that we have to have to maintain our machines, and they create and produce the different ballot styles of machines and all the service work on those, so.
Do we have a motion to approve the service agreement with Atlantic Election Services Incorporated?
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion, to have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second that we approve the Atlantic Electric Service Incorporated resolution. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Ms. Sluss?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Okay. Now we're down to recognizing a couple of attorneys that have been here a long time. And I think I worked with both of them while I worked in the courthouse, so it's a pleasure to pass the resolution, and I'll read it. Whereas Gerald Gray graduated from the University of Virginia School of Law in 1973. Whereas Gerald Gray passed the Virginia State Bar in 1973 and has remained a member in good standing. Whereas Gerald Gray moved to Dickinson County, Virginia, and established a private law practice in Clintwood, Virginia in 1973. Whereas the Virginia State Bar recognizes Gerald Gray on his 50th year anniversary as an attorney and a member of the Virginia State Bar in 2024. Whereas Gerald Gray has served Dickinson County as Commonwealth Attorney from 1984 to 1991 and Assistant Commonwealth Attorney from 2012 to 2016. Whereas Gerald Gray has maintained a private office in Dickinson County since 1973, providing excellent civil and criminal defense service to his clients, and whereas Gerald Gray has supported and promoted Dickinson County at civic and community events throughout his residency in Dickinson County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors congratulate Gerald Gray on his 50th year anniversary as a member of the State Bar and his extraordinary career in law, and applaud his dedication and service to Dickinson County, Virginia, and its citizens, adopted this 23rd day of July, 2024. Do I have a motion to pass the resolution recognizing Mr. Gerald Gray?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments?
I too worked with Mr. Gray when he was Commonwealth Attorney, and he was always very much a gentleman and very knowledgeable. I appreciate his coming here to Dickinson County.
His wife Denise came to Irvington High School, home economics at that time in the 70s, and spoke to our home economics class. Diane did probably in 74, 75. I graduated in 75, so I don't know if it was my junior year in 74 or my senior year in 75, but she came there. He worked a lot with the, what used to be a store in Stratton. Benz County Community Center was there for a while, but it was before that. It was Dickinson County Food Co-op that Don Prang and some started, and he was involved with that for the legal help back in the 70s and stuff. So he's done some work for the county, for the citizens of the county, and those few years for the county.
I met Gerald Gray back in 1973 at a United Mine Workers, something that Bruce had gone to. And I can't remember where we were at, if we were Abington or whether we were in Lebanon. I can't remember, but Gerald Gray was there at that convention. It was some kind of United Mine Workers convention. And I happened to go along with Bruce, and I met Gerald Gray at that meeting. And I'm sure it was back in the 70s when it was, so. And he had just came here when we had that convention, or when they did. But anyway, I have a motion and a second, and the comments. How do you vote, Ms. Celeste?
Aye.
And Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. And with pleasure, I'll read the next one is resolution in recognition of Joe H. Short. Whereas Joe Short graduated from Louisiana State University Law School in 1986, whereas Joe Short passed the Virginia State Bar in 1988 and has remained a member in good standing. Whereas Joe Short is also a member in good standing of the Louisiana State Bar and the South Carolina State Bar. Whereas upon graduation from law school, Joe Short served as a law clerk for the Honorable Judge Crane Louisiana Court of Appeals First Circuit for 5 years, whereas Joe Short established a private law practice in Clintwood, Virginia in April of 1992, whereas Joe Short served Dickinson County as Commonwealth Attorney from 2000 to 2012, whereas Joe Short was appointed as Special Justice for Dickinson County and continues in this capacity, whereas Joe Short continues to provide excellent civil and criminal defense service to the citizens, and whereas Joe Short has supported and promoted Dickinson County at civic and community and school events such as coaching boys and girls basketball and mock trials throughout his career. Now therefore be it resolved that the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors recognizes and congratulates Joe Short for his extraordinary career in the law and applaud his dedication and service to Dickinson County, Virginia, and its citizens. Adopted this 23rd day of July 2024.
I'll make a motion for the recognition of Joe H. Short, which his mother and my mother were first cousins.
Anyone else want to make a comment on Mr. Short? I worked with Joe all those years that he was Commonwealth Attorney in the county. I was there most of those years. And count him as a friend. Do I have a motion to, you made the motion?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second to recognize Mr. Joe Short. Ms. Celeste, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Thacker? Aye. And Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall? Aye. And I also. I have to read this one too.
Resolutions this evening.
Yeah, got a lot of them. Is this Hubbard? Do you say Hubbard? It's Hubbard instead of Hubert, right? It's Hubbard.
Herbert.
Herbert. Whereas this is to recognize Herbert Charles Phipps Memorial Bridge naming. And we have a resolution to name this bridge after him. Hubert Charles Phipps, born February the 9th, 1938 in Dickinson County, grew up in Brush Creek and graduated from Clintwood High School in 1956. And whereas he was the son of Lydia and Hazel Phipps, and having one sister, Carol, and whereas as a member of the 82nd Airborne Infantry Division, home base in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and served as Staff Sergeant in the 101st Airborne 1st Battalion, 327 Infantry, a company in Vietnam. And whereas on April the 22nd, 1962, while on maneuvers near Rollinsburg, West Virginia, where Sergeant Phipps was informed that a girl was clinging to a canoe which capsized near the foreshore of the icy, treacherous Cheat River. He unhesitantly volunteered his service in the rescue efforts. With complete disregard for his own personal safety, he plunged into the swollen river, and while he fought the swift current and cold waters to reach the girl, she lost her hold on the canoe and disappeared. Upon reaching the foreshore, he learned that one of his comrades, who also participated in the rescue effort, had been swept into the nearby rapids and disappeared. With unfailing perseverance and courage, he spent several hours in diving and searching the banks of the dangerous river, trying to locate the bodies of the two victims. And whereas Sergeant Phipps' heroic actions in the highest tradition of the United States Army and reflects general great credit upon himself and the military service. And whereas on September the 20th, 1966, and I guess it's Hoa, Vietnam, Sergeant Phipps' platoon was on a reconnaissance mission on a riverbank where it came under intense enemy fire from the rear. Sergeant Phipps, leader of the rear element, maneuvered his squad towards the enemy position to neutralize it. In doing so, he was fatally wounded as he reached his objectives, and whereas his squad, inspired by the aggressive and determined leadership, continued the assault and completely routed the enemy, enabling the platoon to proceed and successfully accomplish the initial mission. And whereas he was awarded the Post Monstalia Medal for bravery, dedication, and gallantry in action, receiving the Silver Star, Soldier's Medal, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart. And whereas the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors wish to honor Dickinson County soldier who paid the ultimate sacrifice for the county, community, and nation. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the Dickinson County is in accordance with the requirements of Section 33.2-213 of the Code of Virginia, do hereby respectfully request the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the Virginia Department of Transportation formally designate the bridge on Route 631, Brush Creek Road, where the bridge crosses Pound River at the intersection of Ramey Flats, as the Hubert Charles Phipps Memorial Bridge. Be it further resolved, the County of Dickinson will assume the cost and the fabrication, installation, and maintenance of the sign for the name. And we adopt this the 23rd day of July 2024. Oh, that's all reading. Anyway, do I have a motion to name this bridge after him?
I'll make that motion.
I think it's a great honor.
I'll second it, and I thank him so much for his service.
Yes, I do too. Tanya Gully was the one that requested that we do this. It's her uncle. And she has a sister that also gave us a lot of information on it. I have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments?
I'd just like to thank Ms. Willis for her help in getting the research done on all this and stuff. She was very instrumental in getting this done.
Well, we only done one since I've been on the board in 16 years. And so I knew what we had to go through to get the other one, so.
Yeah, I appreciate the help.
You will. And I'm happy to do it because it's a great honor for this person. Ms. Celeste, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Deck?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. Now, the next thing on the agenda is trucks traveling the Lake Road. And Mr. Decker, I'm gonna turn this one over to you. You were Mr. Hall when I think I asked Larry who had it put on, he told me it was you all, so must be your all's district.
Part of my district too.
It's
You wanna read it?
3 districts.
Is it 3 districts?
Mine's on the right side of the road.
Well, mine just come up Rock House, so.
Willis and Clintwood, I think. Whereas members of the Dixon County Board of Supervisors have expressed concerns of their need to travel advisory signs for commercial trucks and/or truck trailers, semi-trailer combinations traveling State Route 607, the Lake Road, staffed with the local Virginia Department of Transportation. And whereas the Lake Road of State Route 607 is a very curvy road and is not designed to accommodate traffic from commercial tractor and trailers or semi-tractor trailer combinations. Whereas the Board of Supervisors wishes to have installed appropriate signage of warning the danger of large commercial truck and trailer traveling the road. Whereas the Board of Supervisors submits this request and promotes the health and safety and welfare of the public without creating an undue hardship on any transportation users. And whereas the VDOT is unwilling to consider this request as is, the Board of Supervisors requests VDOT to notify the Board of such so that the Board can go through the formal request process of Virginia Code 46.2-809 and 24 VAC 30-580-30. Now therefore, Dixon County Board of Supervisors requests from the Virginia Department of Transportation to have installed appropriate signage warning of danger, large commercial trucks and trailers traveling the Lake Road State Route 607.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. I was,
About read out, ain't
I
What do you
read
mean by
out.
they were unwilling?
you? If they were
Well,
unwilling.
it would be, we're passing the resolution, or if we pass it tonight, that they would look at it and put those signs up as warnings, I guess, about them traveling.
Yeah.
And I assume they get lost with their GPS, is that what happens?
Yeah, they get down to
Like
Hayside.
Dollar General trucks and
Dollar General.
things trying to get between the two stores, Clintwood and Hayside, that travel through.
See why they'd be unwilling to do it. I
I need a motion to, pass this, resolution, or,
I'll make a motion, we pass this resolution.
I'll second it.
okay, any discussion on it?
I'd just like to say I've had a lot of concerns about this, and I've reached out to Richard, and he's commented that the sheriff's office kind of responds to some instances with these trucks going down those narrow roads, so it is something that needs to be done.
Yeah, it is a great hazard.
Please tell me it's a hazard just taking a boat down through there. Okay, do I have a motion and a second?
I
Okay,
made the motion.
yeah,
She made the second.
okay. How do you vote, Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser? Aye. And Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Lewis? Aye. And I also. Okay, got that one. Now we're down to appointments, and it is, the Cumberland Airport Commission, and let's see, this is, the one Joe Short filled out Dr. Center's term. And that term is up. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we reappoint Joe Shore.
Now, your second? I'll second it, that we'll reappoint Joe Short. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Ms. Sluss?
Aye.
And Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser? And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. Okay, the next thing is a declaration of surplus property from the Sheriff's Department. We need to declare it surplus. It's a 2008 Chevrolet short utility
And it's a Trailblazer.
Trailblazer, okay. Do I have a motion that we declare it surplus?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have your second? I'll second the motion. That we declare it surplus property. Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Ms. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser? And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. Now, we're going to turn around and donate the surplus property to the Dickinson County Public Schools.
Yes, ma'am, and the instructor of the criminal justice program, Mr. Kent Woods, had spoken with the sheriff's department and feels like they can use this as part of their instructional curriculum at the school to show traffic stops and how to use that. So the school's willing to accept it. I've spoken with Ms. Robinson, so if it's the pleasure of the board, that would benefit their program, so.
Okay. Do I have a motion to donate the surplus property to Dickinson County Public Schools?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second that we donate it to Dickinson County Public Schools. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Celeste?
Aye.
And I also. We have no other business on A today. Okay. Okay, our next thing on the agenda is to adopt the ordinance exempting from real estate property taxes certain property of surviving spouses of persons killed in the line of duty. Do I need to read this one in?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's pretty lengthy as far as that
Well,
goes.
I was thinking,
If you want, I can read the heading. And
Okay,
then
if-
briefly go over the definition.
please
of
do,
authority
Mr.
Okay. And this is the ordinance of the Board of Supervisors of Dickinson County exempting from real property taxes certain property of surviving spouses of persons killed in the line of duty. And whereas the Board of Supervisors of Dickinson County acknowledges and honors the sacrifices made by the families of all first responders, and whereas the Board of Supervisors recognizes that those families whose loved ones have died in the line of duty have made the ultimate sacrifice and desires to ease the burden of that sacrifice by all legal means available to the Board of Supervisors. And whereas on November 8th, 2016, the citizens of Virginia overwhelmingly passed a referendum amending the Virginia Constitution to allow for the exemption from real property taxes of certain property owned by surviving spouses of individuals killed in the line of duty. And whereas the Virginia General Assembly exercised the constitutional authority granted to it by the passage of the referendum enacted by Virginia Code Section 58.1, 3219.14, which authorizes localities to enact local ordinances granting the exemption authorized by the referendum. And whereas the Board of Supervisors desires to exercise the authority granted by Virginia Code Section 58.1, 3219.14, and enact an ordinance providing for the exemption approved by the referendum. Now therefore be it ordained by the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors that it hereby enacts pursuant to 58.1, 3219.14 of the Virginia Code. And then in the ordinance itself, it goes through definitions as far as who the covered person is. Also, the amount that is tax exempt as allowable by law. It also goes into the property that's entitled to the exemption. It's got to be the primary residence of the spouse in order to meet the requirement. And it also has to be, it talks about values and that it's to be based on the average assessed value of the year. And then also, if the surviving spouse remarries or moves to a new residence, the surviving spouse shall qualify for the exemption as long as the surviving spouse does not remarry. The exemption applies without any restriction on the spouse's moving to a different principal place of residence in the county. And again, this is word for word what's in the Virginia Code Section 58.1, 3219.14, but in order for it to take effect, it takes approval of the local government body to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Okay, what is the pleasure of the board? Do you want to adopt this?
I'll make a motion that we adopt this exemption or ordinance.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote? Ms. Sluss?
Aye.
And Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. The next thing on the agenda, we need to schedule some public hearings, correct? And one is, A, is moving the Sand Lake voting precinct And we will have a public hearing on that at 5:40, August the 27th. You want me to do all of them and we'll vote on them at one time? Okay. And B is can we do that, Mr. Sturgill? Can we vote on all three of them at the same time?
You
The
can,
public hearings?
you can vote on them as a block at the same time, or you can vote on them separate, whatever the will
Okay,
of the
we're gonna
board is.
vote on them as a block. Dickinson County Behavioral Health Service, fiscal year 225 performance contract, and we will have it on August the 27th at 5:50 PM. We just have two, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, two public hearings, I was thinking there's three. Do I have a motion that we schedule these public hearings?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Ms. Celeste?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall? Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also. So I didn't hear you. Now we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion, we go in closed section, according to section 2.3711A 1 and 7A, section 2.2-3711A1, I, personnel, 1, maintenance, B, section 2.2-3711A7, and 2, potential litigation.
Okay, she made the motion to have a second to go into closed session.
I'll second it.
Okay, have a motion and a second to go into closed session. Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote? Ms. Celeste?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall?
Aye.
And I also.
Dana.
I need a motion that we come out of closed session.
I make a motion that whereas the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on the date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provision of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors that a closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Then you made the motion that we come out
Yes.
and certify that we only discuss those issues. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Ms. Sluss?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
Mrs. Kaiser?
Aye.
And Mr. Hall? And I also. And matters, do we have any matters discussed in closed session? You have the one to Hall.
I'd like to make a motion that we offer for employment in the maintenance department, Dylan Dooley. And if he should turn the position down, that we give the administrator the authority to offer it to the second person in the qualification list.
I hear a second to that motion.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, how do you vote, Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Kaiser?
Aye.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
And Ms. Sluss?
Aye.
And I also. I didn't see supervisors' comments tonight. Did we leave it out?
We must have missed it. We can go ahead and do it.
Does anyone want to make a comment, the supervisors? I'll ask Ms. Sluss first.
Well, yeah, I would like to thank the town of Clintwood, the town council, which allowed a revival to be held in the walking track for 2 weeks. I think it ends the 24th. I got to go 2 nights, and it was very nice, and I would like to thank the town of Clintwood Town Council for that opportunity, and the mayor, Danny Lambert, and I pray that that all the students and the teachers and the staff, anybody affiliated with the school, that they have a wonderful school year, beginning in August the 8th, I believe is when school begins. But I pray that they have a wonderful and safe year upcoming. Thank you.
Mr. Thacker, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the board members for voting to adopt the ordinance exempting the real property tax for the surviving spouses of persons killed in the line of duty. I personally have 3 friends that was killed in the line of duty, and I understand the impact it's made on their family, and I just want to thank everybody for that.
Ms. Kaiser?
Oh, I just hope everybody's had a good summer, about ready to, kids to go back to school here in about 3 weeks, and blessed rest of the summer season.
Mr. Hall?
I just want to remind everybody that we're going to be having workforce training over here
Oh, yeah.
for people, so that's going to be a great thing, gets people trained, maybe getting better jobs.
When's that start? August 8th.
August 19th
Okay.
through November 28th for carpentry, January 13th through the 25th in 2025 for electrical.
That's great.
May 3rd through August 11th, 2025 for welding.
Didn't they have another one for HVAC?
There's a welding that I didn't think of here, so I got the two confused, I think.
Okay,
So
okay.
So that's just going to be a great program for the county here.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So hopefully we can expand on that and offering some more stuff. That's it.
I guess then it leaves me. I'd just like to say that I appreciate all my board members, and I'm like, Richard, I'm glad that we passed that, ordinance tonight, or that, resolution. And also, I was like Chris, I was excited when I saw the classes that was gonna be taught here, cause this is what this building was built for. And we never could get no classes hardly going here. And so I was excited too with the classes that's starting. And I like to thank Larry for everything he does, and Mr. Sturgill for everything he does. And we've kept him busy. And if there's nothing else, I need a motion for us to adjourn.
Make a motion with adjourn.
Anyone want to second it?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second that we adjourn. All in favor, vote the usual way of voting? Aye.